to be said of him. Hence Homer, though he has only mentioned Nereus in one place, amplifies from paralogism, and mentions him here, though he did not intend to mention him in any other place afterwards. The diction therefore adapted to popular harangues perfectly resembles sciagraphy. For the greater the number of the spectators, the more remotely is such a picture to be seen. Hence, in both accuracy is superfluous, and both become worse through it. But judicial diction is more accurate, and it is requisite that the diction should be still more accurate, which is addressed to one judge. For this is the least thing in rhetorical diction. For that which is appropriate to, and that which is foreign from a thing, are more easily perceived. In this case also contention is absent, so that the judgment is pure. Hence the same rhetoricians are not celebrated in all these kinds of diction. But where action is especially necessary, their accuracy is in the smallest degree requisite. And where voice, and especially a loud one is required, there action is necessary. Demonstrative diction, therefore, is most proper for writing. For demonstrative orations are composed in order that they may be read. But judicial diction is the next in order. It is however superfluous to divide diction into the pleasing and magnificent. For why may it not as well be divided into the temperate and liberal, or into any other ethical virtue? For it is evident that the particulars already mentioned will render it pleasing, if the virtue of diction has been rightly defined by us. For why ought it to be perspicuous, and not abject, but decorous? Since it will not be perspicuous, either if it be verbose or concise. But it is evident that the medium between these is appropriate. The particulars also, before mentioned, render diction pleasing, if usual and foreign words are well mingled together, and likewise rhythm, and that which is calculated to persuade from the decorous. And thus much concerning diction, as well in common about every, as in particular about each genus. CHAPTER 13. It now remains that we should speak concerning the order of diction. But there are two parts of an oration. For it is necessary to speak of the thing which is the subject of discussion, and then to demonstrate. Hence it is impossible for him who narrates a thing not to demonstrate, or that he should demonstrate without previous narration. For he who demonstrates, demonstrates something, and he who propounds, propounds for the sake of demonstrating. Of these necessary parts of an oration, however, the one is the proposition, but the other the confirmation. In the same manner as in the sciences, one thing is a problem, but another a demonstration. But the division which rhetoricians now make is ridiculous. For narration belongs to a forensic oration. But in the demonstrative and deliberative genus, how can there be an oration, such as they say there is, or those things which are urged against the opponent? Or how can there be a peroration of things demonstrative? The proem, however, the comparison, and the repetition, then take place in orations to the people, when there is altercation (for in these there is frequently accusation and defence), but not so far as there is consultation in these. But neither does peroration belong to every forensic oration. For it is not requisite, when the oration is short, or the thing can easily be remembered, since in this peroration it would happen that something would be taken away from the length of such an oration. The necessary parts of an oration, therefore, are proposition and proof. And these indeed are proper or peculiar parts. But the most numerous parts of an oration are the proem, the proposition, proof, and peroration. For what is said against the opponent pertains to proof, and the comparison is an amplification of our arguments, so that it is a certain part of the proof. for he demonstrates something who does this. Neither the proem, however, nor the peroration is a part of the proof, but each is subservient to recollection. If, therefore, any one makes a division of things of this kind, like the followers of Theodorus, narration, pre*narration, supernarration, confutation, and superconfutation will be different from each other. It is necessary, however, that he who speaks of a certain species and difference of a thing should give a name to it ; for if not, it will become vain and nugatory. And this fault of needlessly introducing new names was committed by Lycimnius in his Art of Rhetoric, when he speaks of eruption, aberration, and ramification. CHAPTER 14. The proem, therefore, is the beginning of an oration, which in dramatic poetry is the prologue, and in playing on the pipe the prelude. For all these are principles or beginnings, and as it were preparatory to what follows. And the prelude, indeed, is similar to the proem of the demonstrative kind of orations. For as those that play on the pipe connect the prelude with the beginning of the song, thus also in demonstrative orations, immediately after the orator has mentioned what he wishes to say, it is necessary to collect aptly with it what is to follow. Of which all rhetoricians adduce as an example the proem of Isocrates in his oration in praise of Helen. For Isocrates begins his encomium with blaming the sophists, which has nothing in common with the praise of Helen. And yet, because he has aptly conjoined it with the argument, he has obtained praise. But the proems of demonstrative orations are derived from praise or blame, as in the proem of Gorgias to his Olympiac oration, O Greeks, this is a thing worthy of general admiration. For he praises those who instituted the public spectacles. Isocrates on the contrary blames them, because they honoured indeed with gifts the virtues of the body, but appointed no reward for wise men. The proems also of demonstrative orations are derived from counsel and advice, such for instance as, that it is requisite to honour good men, on which account he, the orator, has undertaken to praise Aristides. Or as he who wrote an oration in praise of Paris, for he says, that it is neither requisite to praise those who are celebrated, nor those who are of no account, but those who are good, and at the same time obscure men, such as was Paris, the son of Priam. For he who thus begins his oration is one that gives counsel. Farther still, the proems of demonstrative orations are derived from forensic proems. But this is from things pertaining to the hearer, if the oration is concerning something paradoxical, or difficult, or much celebrated, so as to require pardon from the auditors. Such for instance as the proem of Corylus, But now, since all things are divulged. The proems, therefore, of demonstrative orations are derived from these things, viz. From praise and blame, from exhortation and dissuasion, and from those things which are referred to the hearer. It is necessary, however, that the proems should either be foreign or appropriate to the oration. With respect to proems of the forensic kind, it is necessary to assume that they are able to effect the same thing as the prologues of dramatic, and the proems of epic poems. For dithyrambic proems are similar to those of the demonstrative kind, as On account of thee, and thy gifts or spoils. But in dramatic and epic poems, the proems are a specimen of what is to follow, that the reader may foresee what the subject of them is, and that his mind may not be kept in suspense. For that which is indefinite causes the mind to wander. The poet, therefore, who delivers into the hands of the reader the beginning of his poem, makes him follow with attention the rest of it. Hence, Homer